Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Hanson for the Global Compassion Coalition, and this is our year-end event in 2023. As some people reckon the calendar, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, at least many of us. I want to say that last year has definitely been some turbulent times, and the year to come is probably going to be some bouncy stuff as well. And to cope with what's around us and to be strong inside, and we need to develop, a strong heart. And that's what this program's about. And I'm really grateful that you're joining me here. The plan basically is to show you a couple of videos and also then guide you through some practices. Then we'll be joined with our special guest, Reggie Hubbard, who worked for many years in the halls of the U.S. Congress as an activist and advocate. And then he got involved with mindfulness, yoga, and social justice, all wrapped up together in a wonderful, interesting kind of way. And with Reggie, we have this combination of someone who has really seen and participated in the hard work of making laws and making policy and running into roadblocks. And then what do you do? Who also integrates deep personal practice. The combination is pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to Reggie joining us at the half hour mark. So I'd like to mention that this is in part a benefit for the Global Compassion Coalition. I donate my time entirely to the coalition. And we have some paid staff. We have other expenses. And if you feel moved in your heart to make a year-end tax-deductible donation to the Global Compassion Coalition, I would really appreciate that. My friend Alex Wilkes, our webmaster and IT person extraordinaire, is now awake at 2 a.m. for him in London. So, you can donate in honor of Alex if you want to. He'll be putting into the chat, which you should be able to see, the donation link, which Alex has already done. Fantastic there. So I just welcome your participation. I welcome your donations. Thank you. You'll also have a chance to put questions or comments in the chat, and then we'll try to respond to them as well. Obviously, to help the world be better, we need to come together at scale. There are so many wonderful people around the world and organizations doing great things, but they tend to be separated from each other. Maybe they know about each other, but they don't tend to combine their forces. Meanwhile, very, very powerful entrenched interests may compete with each other at the marketplace level, but wow, do they join their forces and pool their money at the political level, the level of influence, both through fair means and corrupt means as well. To compete with that, we need to come together at scale. And that's the fundamental vision of the Global Compassion Coalition, moved by compassion, moved by suffering, and the desire to relieve it and change its causes. We are forming coalitions that are big enough to be strong enough to make a lasting difference. We're doing that in the area of children in early years. We're beginning to focus on climate. We have an initiative to promote civil society, and also we've developed toolkits for leaders that they can use to become more compassionate themselves, as well as a whole bunch of other projects. So what I'd like to show you now is a video that Alex will cue up and play in a moment that gives you a sense of what we've accomplished in 2023 already, even though we've just been kind of working with, some focus here in tangible terms for really just about 9 months. So Alex, if you have a chance to play that video. That's great. I've seen that video at this point several times. I'm touched every time, right? It's what we can do together. And one of my favorite aspects of the Global Compassion Coalition is our Compassion Connectors program, which now has close to 2,000 people really around the world who are local activists or local leaders bringing compassionate action into the local level, which is really the grassroots foundational level of society. And we've got a wonderful video here about one of those compassion connectors, Susie in Malawi. And Alex will play that now.
Hello, I am Susan Zimbiri from Malawi, Zomba. I am a nurse by profession, and I'm continuing with my education in nursing. I did my diploma in nursing. Now I'm upgrading to bachelor's. So I'm still a student. I have this compassion with the older people here in Malawi. The elder people are discriminated, and people accuse them of witchcraft and bewitching other people. So they are often discriminated from the community and being isolated from the community. So it has been my compassion for them. I feel sorry for them, but meeting is GCC, it opened my eyes that I can actually reach for them and help them and show them that I love them and give the example to the community that these people are just people like us, and they are elders. They need respect and they need to be loved. So I started my first time as a connector. I went to do survey and I found out that many elder people are living alone, like they don't have people or relatives or children to take care of them. They are living alone in the wasted house, not cleaned, and has a lot of medical conditions. My first time being a connector, we went to the community, like villages surround us where I live in Zomba. So we met a lot of elder people, like we moved in a lot of houses, and we met a lot of them, almost 20, I think it was 20, and 14 of them were female and 6 of them were male elder people, and others were living with their relatives like children, grandchildren, and while others were living alone. So we met with this lady who were living alone, who hasn't had any visitor like since 4 years, and she was really happy to see us there, and she didn't allow us to go. She was like, you should stay a little bit longer, and we chatted with her. We promised her that we are going to be visiting her and chatting with her, and we promised that if God blessed us with something, we are going to give her some basic needs. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I personally was moved to donate to Susie and that program there, and you may feel moved yourself to support her work and the other work of the Global Compassion Coalition with a donation. And I think it's also important to remember that so many of the forms of generosity that we express are not financial, and people have different means. So, there's plenty of ways, if you're interested, by the way, to join the coalition, participate in its offerings, and lend your support, including by simply telling other people about it. Basically, we're interested in the intersection of inner and plus outer, personal and political, local and global, the two together. And that's what we need to focus on to be able to influence the world around us. And it's also what we need to cultivate inside ourselves. At the Global Compassion Coalition website, we have tons of freely offered practices and guides that are based on compassion science, connecting with the wisdom traditions around the world, guides and practices to develop more compassion and related qualities like resilience and self-worth inside yourself. So it's the combination of the two that really is the sweet spot for the Global Compassion Coalition. And I invite you to check out those practices. You might be really touched by them. There's a wide range, plenty to find there. And we continue to add to them routinely. And now, speaking of practice, I'd like to draw you into some practice here. I think about myself, what it takes to walk, evenly over uneven ground. How do we look out at the world that's very noisy, very busy? How do we look out at that world with quiet eyes, with a heart that's balanced enough to be wide enough to include everything? So I'd like to offer 4 of my own go-tos, my own kind of practices. There's some others, but these 4 are really good. I'll spend, a couple minutes each with them, and then hopefully there'll be time at the end to respond to some questions or comments that may have come into the chat. As with any kind of experiential practice, go your own way, find what works for you. Different people, different things work for different people. And, most importantly, when you find something that's useful for you, slow down and take it in. Let it sink in. Tap into the power of what's called positive neuroplasticity to help the states that you're experiencing become traits, stable qualities, stable resources, stable strengths inside you that you can take with you wherever you go, since now they are hardwired into your own nervous system. Slow down and take in the good along the way. All right, so let's give it a whirl. Let's give it a try. The first of these is to feel stable in the place where you are. I mean, we're animals, big monkeys, big primates, mammals, we need to know where we are, where we stand. So if you just take a moment and look around where you are, especially lifting your gaze to the horizon line or above, that does good things neurologically, including, energizing circuits in your brain that can pull you out of anxious rumination into a sense of the larger whole. And you can satisfy yourself as you look around. Okay, this place is okay. May not be the most beautiful place in the world. My place isn't, but it's stable. It's sturdy. You can count on it. And in this simple practice, you can feel the stability of the floor beneath your feet, the stability maybe of the chair you're sitting in. You can land and feel increasingly stable and grounded in the place where you are. The simple practice, you can already probably notice just doing this for a minute and a half or so. Feels different to be established in a place that feels good for you. And then second, getting in touch with the heart. We're social creatures, even an introvert like me, and you might get a sense of breathing in the area of your heart. You might put your hand on your heart. And we're starting to access here simple feelings of open-heartedness, simple, basic decency, kindness, friendliness, compassion, maybe even love. You can bring to mind beings you care about, keeping it simple, not getting complicated about it, just the feelings of caring. What's it like to feel caring? What's it like to feel warm-hearted? You might also get in touch with a sense of caring coming toward you, to the extent you can find it genuinely, even in the middle of a fairly isolated, lonely life. Almost all of us have opportunities to find one or more of the 5 basic ways to feel cared about: to be included, to know that you are seen, if it's true, to be appreciated, to be liked, and to be loved. 5 basic ways on a range. Any one of them is shelter in a storm. And a lot of us find it easier to experience caring for others than to experience being cared about. And yet, if actually you are indeed cared about, even in some of the simpler ways that I just listed there, it's real, and you can afford to let yourself feel it. Whether it's flowing in or flowing out, lovingness, caringness strengthens the heart. Third, tune into a sense of strength. You don't have to be all like a bodybuilder or a karate expert just to feel strong, determined, uh, enduring, endurance. Even if you're tired and don't feel that great, but you're hanging in there, that's a form of strength that really counts. You might bring to mind a time when you were very determined on someone else's behalf, loyal to them, staying with it, or determined on your own behalf. What does that feel like? What's the look in your eyes when you mean business? How do you hold yourself? Not that you're going to war with anyone, but you're grounded in your own strength. We might say even your own power. Can you get in touch with that? That sense of personal strength. You might use other words like grit, fortitude, determination. Very useful in dealing with turbulent times. We may not be able to count on the world outside us, but increasingly we can count on ourselves, in part by building up these resources inside, like we're doing right here. One breath at a time, one synapse at a time. We really can develop the strong heart for turbulent times. Imagine this year from a place of strength and warm-heartedness, the two together. What would it be like for you to move through your year on the basis of open-hearted strength? What might be the benefits for you and others if you moved through your year in that way? And then fourth, finding some kind of inner peace underneath it all, as the container of it all, as you experience a sense of your strength and an opening of your heart and a stability in the place where you are. It's natural for you to feel calmer. If it's not happening, it's okay, but you might invite a growing calming, a sense of calm strength, calm centeredness, calm open-heartedness, here and now. You're not suppressing anything, you're not numbing anything. You're just getting centered and peaceful. And in this inner peace, there's a fundamental wisdom in knowing that you can focus on where you do have influence, taking the actions that you can, while also knowing that so much is out of your hands. There's a peace in that. There's a peace in knowing that you have tended to the causes, some might say, while knowing that you cannot completely control the results. There's a peacefulness in knowing that we have taken responsibility for doing what we can, while also recognizing that the ultimate results are, in many ways, often largely out of our own hands. There's a peacefulness in that. So imagine now, if you could, if you like, the year to come and moving through it in this place of calm, open-hearted strength. Sure, you might get anxious from time to time. You might get irritated from time to time. I do. Um, but you can see yourself moving through the year relatively calmly, eyes wide open, heart open, while still taking care of yourself, drawing boundaries, being assertive as needed, with an underlying sense of your own grit, your own determination, your own strength. What would that be like? That combination of calm, open-hearted strength as you move through 2024. What might be the benefits for you and others in approaching life in this way? And so you can just take a final minute here in whatever way you like, whatever's been beneficial for you that you've cultivated here in this practice, letting it sink in. Letting yourself become established in a way of being that feels really good for you. Perhaps even slightly adjusting how you're sitting or whatever your posture is so that it embodies this way of being. Okay. So you are most welcome to continue feeling whatever's useful here. And I'm going to take a peek now at any kind of comments or questions that have come in through the chat so far. No questions or comments in particular. Anything is on your mind, I'd love to see it. You can also, if you like, take this opportunity to donate to the Global Compassion Coalition. It's tax deductible and most appreciated. Alex will put that link in the chat again if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, that you can use to donate. Any questions or comments so far? No? No worries. Well, I can throw in a thing or two that I have found really, 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 really helpful. Which in this relates to the question that just came in from Ren. It just seems to me, and I've really come to appreciate it, that our inner practices, which have been the focus basically of my 50 years, more or less, career at this point, inner practices are really important. Increasing internal psychological factors of healing and resilience and well-being and coping are really good things to do. On the other hand, most of the efforts to increase individual consciousness do not lead to societal improvements. They haven't throughout history. We generally don't see it today. They are decoupled. You can have an increasingly conscious populace while governments and big industries and big companies and concentrations of wealth and power, rising authoritarianism keeps proceeding on its own. So we need both. We need both inner and outer, and we need to find ways to connect inner more to outer. And that's where Ren's comment comes in really centrally. With civil society, in other words, when there are multiple centers of power in a country with the rule of law and fundamentally a respect for democratic processes, then it's a lot easier for the well-being of people in general to be furthered. So long-term, building institutions of civil society is the prize, long-term. And a key aspect of that is what's called civic engagement. Now, civic engagement looks different in Saudi Arabia. We have people on our advisory council from Saudi Arabia who are very engaged with civic engagement, very much supporting it. And that's going to look different in Saudi Arabia than it does in Finland, where I happened to live for a year when I was in high school. And that's going to look different from civic engagement in America or in Vietnam. And that's okay. We start where people are in the process. In America and in other places where there's, a more or less functioning democracy, could certainly be improved in my country. Still, a lot of civic engagement boils down to people becoming, basically informed and knowing how to vote. And so supporting access to voting, information about voting, being able to register to vote when voting is an opportunity, as it is in certainly many, many countries in the world with significant influence, including my own country, America. Enabling people to know about how to register to vote and where to vote, especially younger people who tend to have very low turnout. That can be a major form of civic engagement. It's nonpartisan. All right. We're not taking sides about issues. We just want people to vote, period. However they vote is up to them. That they vote is something that any nonprofit that has a pro-social orientation has a very legitimate interest in, because the foundation of any successful mission for a nonprofit is a functioning society. And so, that's been a very important interest of mine and a number of other people, including how to catalyze a large alliance of nonprofits in general who will do what they can to promote civic engagement in nonpartisan ways. It's interesting. In America, there is an alliance called Civic Alliance for businesses, but no such thing for nonprofits. Interesting. There's no alliance of nonprofits in general who agree to promote civic engagement as part of their legitimate mission in nonpartisan ways. And I think that would be a really good thing to develop, certainly in America, and then using that model and adapting it to different countries throughout the world. It's when we come together, we're just so much stronger for the greater good. So thank you, Ren. Thank you for that question and comment there. In a moment, I think I'm going to be joined with my friend Reggie Hubbard. So as soon as Reggie's available, Alex will pop him in. Meanwhile, I'm very curious still, what was it like for you to do those practices? I'm routinely startled by the effect of a minute or so of just focused attention, even a breath or two. If you want to try something right now, kind of as an experiment, let's do 3 breaths. Notice something that happens in just 3 breaths. And you can extend this. All right. You could take more time with it later if you want. So we'll do it this way. Ready? In the first breath, and I'll do it with you. In the first breath, breathe while feeling your chest as a whole. So you're feeling the left and the right together, front and back together. That sense of things as a whole activates networks on the sides of your brain, especially the right hemisphere for right-handed people, because it's the right hemisphere for right-handed people that's involved with gestalt processing, holistic processing, seeing things as a whole. And when we tune into anything as a whole, including our body sensations as a whole, those networks get active, which quiets activity in midline cortical networks that tend to get caught up with stressful problem solving and also caught up with lots of negative rumination, including, self-referential negative rumination. So right there, one breath, breathing while feeling your chest as a whole. Wow. Pretty effective. Okay, here's the second breath. Breathing while feeling caring. Bringing to mind one or more beings you care about. Could be your cat, your grandmother, your children, your friends, anybody. Focusing on the feeling in the heart area. Breathing while feeling caring. It might be a little difficult to call up that feeling, but I bet you can do it. Breathing while feeling caring. Okay, that's the second kind of breath. And these are little practices that I'm just offering here. I like them because you can do them privately. They're quick. They are grounded in brain science. And I can explain to you why they tend to work and help you feel stronger and more centered. But the real evidence of efficacy that these things work is in your own experience. Try it out. Notice what it feels like. So, quick review, and I'll string these three together when we're all done. First breath, breathing while feeling your chest as a whole. Once you get used to it, by the way, you can expand that to breathing while feeling your body as a whole. That's the first breath. Second breath, breathing while feeling caring. Love broadly flowing out of you. Oh. And then the third one, little more challenging for many people, breathing while feeling cared about. So this is where you bring to mind, one or more beings, could be a group of people, that in which you feel good. You're included, or they like you. They don't have to be your best friends. They might drive you crazy sometimes, but they care about you. They appreciate you. Maybe they like you. Perhaps they even love you. And recognizing the facts when they're true, the facts of being cared about, can you let yourself feel it? Right? So here we go. Let's try this one. Breathing while feeling cared about. If somebody likes you, can you let yourself feel liked? It's often a lot easier to experience caring about others than it is to experience being cared about yourself. And yet, It's really important, as I mentioned earlier, to be able to tune in to that sense of being included, seen, appreciated, liked, or loved. So let's try it again. Breathing while feeling cared about. This might be as simple as just knowing that you're cared about. Breathing while knowing that you're cared about. All right. And then let's just put them together. Okay. This is really one of my favorite practices, really. It's one I share with people routinely. You're welcome to take anything that's useful here and share it with others however you like and it's useful. So here we go. Breathing while feeling your chest as a whole. Okay. Then in the second sort of breath, being aware of breathing in the area of your heart, perhaps with a hand on your heart. Breathing while feeling caring. Hmm. And then breathing while feeling cared about. You might just simply have a sense of a kind of lovingness flowing in and flowing out, flowing in and flowing out as you breathe, calming you. Opening, centering. Hmm. Good. Biologically, um, compassion comes from the caring system that evolved really strongly in mammals, then primates, then particularly hominids and humans. Initially grounded in the caregiving system between mothers and infants, mothers and young children, particularly as childhood got longer and longer, so the human brain could grow to its full size. And then that caring system connected with mates and family, kinship systems, and ultimately the village it takes to raise a child. It's very innate in us. And as we drop into that openness of caring and being cared about, it strengthens us. and makes us feel more connected with others. And in that connection that I'm talking about here between science and practice is also another central feature of the Global Compassion Coalition. And you can explore the science, which is really laid out very skillfully on our website, globalcompassioncoalition.org, and you can see the latest research on compassion there. You can see summaries of research that have been developed by Matt Hawkins, our Chief Communications Officer, and others. And you can also see really interesting videos and panel discussions with leading scientists, the top scientists in the world, basically on compassion. Many of them are on our board or advisory council or are among our founding supporters. And we include them in our events, and there's lots of great information there. So speaking of connection, I want to show you one more video here. This is from, where is it from? It's from Nigeria. A large fraction of the nearly 120,000 people in the Compassion Coalition now, pushed probably close to the majority of them, come from the global south. This is not just Northern Hemisphere, I don't know, American thing. It's really a very broad movement, this Global Compassion Coalition. So let's see Ualaka from Nigeria.
Hello, wonderful viewers. I am Owalaka Uchechukwu, the Crusader, a compassion connector from Nigeria with the Global Compassion Coalition, actively involved in my community in the works of compassion, like in the areas of school mentorship, where we now mentor youths and teens on the need to develop a sense and consciousness of support, helpfulness, kindness, friendliness to one another, and to have a heartwarming and caring response to the suffering of others and themselves. We are also actively involved in the prison community, where through our compassionate activities, the inmates have been able to develop a sense of hope, a sense of care, a sense of belonging. We are also actively involved with the community of persons with disabilities, where we have been able to let them know that a society where inclusion is a topmost priority is possible. In the hospital area, we've been able to, through our compassion activities, encourage those in the hospital, especially the indigent ones who are finding it difficult to meet up with the bills of their medical care. Through our compassionate activities, we've been able to attract support, no matter how little, to support these ones in their medical upkeep. It's been a wonderful experience so far working with the Global Compassion Coalition. The resources, the guidance, the insights has been very, very wonderful. It has given us, especially those of us in Africa, a reassurance that compassion can truly become a household virtue and culture, especially in our part of the world where people are so much engrossed with their personal needs and cares. The works of compassion that we've been able to do has really bring a reassurance to so many that together we can build a world where compassion thrives, where compassion touches the hearts of leaders and the led, leading to activities that promotes the common good of all.
Wow. I would vote for him as a leader, that's for sure. He would have my vote, definitely. And so you've seen two of the compassion connectors. There are close to 2,000 other ones around the world engaged with grassroots activities, supported and trained to some extent, certainly, and resourced in the ways that we can offer resources that are appropriate in different settings in the world from the Global Compassion Coalition. That's one of our major activities. So again, I really encourage you, think about donating. This is a year end in the Northern Hemisphere, at least, could be a tax deductible donation for you. And we could really use it. It really will go to where it's most needed. I don't take a penny from the coalition. I'm here as a volunteer. I'm offering my time. I've also donated some money myself, and I welcome your own participation and support. And if you're moved to give it, some financial support as well. So thank you for that. I'd like to speak now to some wonderful questions that have come in from Corey. And just kind of for the record, I'll read the questions and the comments in question, really, and then we can talk about it together here. So Corey says, creating a sense of community, especially a strong sense, is a struggle for many folks, including myself. It occurs to me that thinking about how to participate in compassionate activities within my community, is usually well received by said community. But there is so much focus on individualized behavior in our culture that it seems challenging to rally folks within the community to engage in these compassionate activities. In the interest of promoting compassion beyond wants and prayers, hopes and prayers, might you have any thoughts on engaging within communities to try to surface and espouse compassionate behavior? Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful question. I love the practicality of it because, yeah, I'm kind of tired myself of manifestos, aspirational statements and thoughts and prayers and good wishes. I think it's all beautiful. It's great. Plans are great, but we need action, right? We need action on climate. We need action on rising a new weapons race in the world. We need action on the fact that, a little bit of a warning here, that starvation in our planet is still a real thing. Over 1 million people die every year of hunger-related causes. 10,000 children a day. It's criminal, and yet it continues every day. We need action. So how do we do it? How do we do it in ways large and small? That's what Corey's getting at. What I think the research shows, first of all, is that it's helpful to feel strong enough inside to bring compassion to others. One person in a network being more compassionate themselves, not letting themselves be exploited by others. Compassion is not approval. It is not giving up your own needs for the sake of others. It's simply empathy for suffering combined with benevolence, the movement, the motivation to help if you can. So that's essentially what compassion is. Just doing that, being that way yourself, letting others land in you a little more, recognizing the being behind those eyes, seeing the suffering, the stress, the weariness, the burden, the anxiety in other people as you walk down the street. Just being that kind of a person sends ripples, research has shown, through social networks. Just that alone is very, very effective. Second, it really does help to have a buddy, a partner, an ally. It could be someone that you just interact with online for all kinds of reasons, including maybe they're just in a different part of the world. Or it could be somebody, that's nearby, you actually see face to face. If you have one other person who can be an ally for you, that can make an enormous difference. And then the two of you together can focus on maybe a little project inside your community. For example, just simply listening to others, including in politicized contexts like in America and often many other countries in the world. Just simply learning how to listen without letting yourself be pushed around, but on the other hand, not getting reactive when other people might have a different opinion about politics or some other issue. That alone, it's called bridging differences sometimes, or living room conversations is a major ally of the Global Compassion Coalition. You could look them up. And anyway, that is an example of ways in which just two people can do things that send ripple effects through various communities. Third, it's really helpful to make it explicit, to just name what's true. Sometimes, people try to brush suffering under the rug. Oh, out of sight, out of mind. Mm-mm. Just naming some facts. In many, many communities, there is a lot of distress. Susie did her survey where she's located in Africa, in Malawi, and found that there were many, many older people living alone in pretty terrible conditions, sometimes even ostracized by the community as practicing witchcraft or something. And so, naming those facts, naming the fact of the number of children wherever you live who are living in poverty, one way or another. That's a fact. Naming facts of things like carbon emissions of various companies and industries where you're located. Naming facts about wealth inequality where you're located. Just naming facts. Facts are not partisan. Just naming facts. Surfacing suffering. And then fourth, connecting with movements like the Charter for Compassion, which is the premier partner and ally of the Global Compassion Coalition, the Charter for Compassion, founded by Karen Armstrong and others around the Charter itself. They have fostered a phenomenal compassionate cities movement, certainly in Northern America, but also around the world. They're doing amazing things right now in Pakistan, for example. You can connect with those sorts of things, the Compassionate Cities movement, many of which are associated with the Charter for Compassion, as well as other forms of compassionate communities around the world. And in those contexts, getting the city council or the board of supervisors or the head of the library, anybody to be willing to go on the record in favor of compassion. It's hard not to be in favor of compassion, but getting it in writing, getting that resolution passed by the city council or the school board or the hospital authorities, whatever it might be, in whatever organization, including sometimes in for-profit companies, that compassion is of value. In other words, the simple recognition of suffering and the movement to relieve it if one can. Saying it explicitly, that's a thing that can be really done. So, quick recap. Inappropriate ways that don't get you into trouble or expose you to attacks of different kinds, and appropriate ways for you, being deliberately compassionate. Half a breath here, a minute or two there, just that alone can send wonderful ripple effects. Second, a buddy, an ally, someone you're doing it with, and you can talk with each other, you can have camaraderie with each other, you can commiserate with each other, an ally. Third, connecting with community movements that are already pro-social. Another fantastic resource is Pro-Social World, based on the work of Paul Atkins and the Nobel Prize-winning economist Elinor Ostrom, I think, and other people. I'm blanking on some of the names of the other key people that are involved in there. David Sloan Wilson, certainly. There we go. Check out Pro-Social World, which are these basic principles that you can see increasingly studied and investigated and implemented in compassionate communities. So connecting with existing movements, that's third. And then fourth, in your own community, see if you can get them to take a stand for compassion. Just explicitly, hey, are we for compassion? And if you're not, if you have a hard time saying you are, that's a bit of a red flag, right? What's going on there? So anyway, those would be 4 suggestions I would offer so far. Well, I hate to say it, Reggie, it's late for where he is. I don't know what happened there. We'll find out later. There he is. There's my friend Reggie. Good to see you, brother.
Peace, friend. How are you?
Oh yeah, good. I know it's late where you are. I won't keep you up. No
keep me as
worries.
long as you need to, man. Like I just read the times wrong and jet lag and life, but
oh yeah, no worries.
Confusion happens. So
yeah,
here we are.
Okay, well, so for those who will stick around, how about we go 15 minutes past the top of the hour? We'll go a little long. I certainly want to stick around for what Reggie has to say. Reggie, I'm going to read your little bio from the event page for this, and then we'll jump right into it. Okay. All right. So Reggie Hubbard is an activist, strategist, certified yoga and mindfulness meditation teacher, and founder of Active Peace Yoga. He teaches members of Congress in the United States Congress. He teaches also congressional staff, leading progressive organizations, and individuals, sharing techniques for growing peace and ease as a foundation, not an afterthought. I love that. So, Reggie, I'd like to ask you 3 questions, and then we'll see what pops into the chat sidebar along the way. And I want to stress what I said about you in the very beginning, that for me, you're such a wonderfully unusual person in the combination of hardcore political chops, deep spiritual wisdom, and a personal life story that's, in which you walk your own talk. So, much gratitude and respect for you. Seriously.
Thank you, friend. No, it's good to be appreciated for being a unicorn.
That's right.
Most people just kvetch about your horn. You know what I'm saying? They're just kind of like, yo, that horn is kind of unusual, right? But thank you for appreciating me in my totality.
Oh yeah, no, really. It's a combination of qualities. There are a lot of people who do Congress stuff. There are a lot of people who teach yoga stuff, that and plus about 5 other things. Boom, 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 boom. That's very unique. Okay. So first question.
Yeah.
When you look out at the, 2024, what's your biggest hope for the new year?
My biggest hope for the new year is that we stop deluding ourselves into thinking that compassion is going to happen on its own.
Whoa.
Right. It has been laid bare for us over the past several years, the necessity of coming together. To be of service to one another. For whatever reason, we have talked ourselves back into habits that were defunct and destructive before the pandemic. And so to pick up these defunct ideologies, doubling down on like economic systems that are meant to exploit as opposed to connect. So all of these things, like, my biggest hope in 2024 is, because I overheard some of the things you were saying before I came on.
Great.
Naming facts and surfacing suffering and making a movement to relieve it if you can, like, that's power. And, as a citizen activist, that is kind of how my yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and political practices come together. I'm just naming facts.
Yeah. They're not partisan.
No,
sure. Reality is not partisan.
I'm surfacing suffering. Right. Look, and like you said earlier, like, if you can't be down with not having a compassionate world, I can't be down with you. So like, I'm hopeful that enough people raise their voices in the chorus that you and I are trying to, the ensemble we're trying to put together.
Yeah.
So that we can just be like, enough of this. Enough.
I know. I know. There's a moral dimension to it, isn't there?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not partisan. Right is right and wrong is wrong. It's not right. It's not.
Kids are going hungry. It's not their fault. They need our help.
The homelessness crisis is spiking in the United States. The mental health crisis is spiking in the United States. Globally, I would imagine, but my work is specifically, well, not specifically, but 90% focused on the States. I still do global stuff, but the levels of suffering are there, and we have a delusional nature in Western culture to go like this.
Yeah.
If I can't see it, it ain't happening. It's like playing hide and go seek with a kid. Kid covers their face and you can't see them, right? And so that's the delusion that we're all walking in. Not we all, but societally we're walking in. And so if we can just pull back the veil of delusion and just see things for what they are, and then marshal our resources in abundance to be of service, I think it's possible. It sure as hell ain't gonna be easy, but I do think it's possible. And I know this from the rapid ascension and success of my teaching practice. Rick, I just been hitting a bell.
Yeah.
I've been pretty consistent with hitting the bell. And if you're about the bell, you come see me. If you're not about the bell, you're not gonna come see me.
Yeah. When you look out at the world, also, what's your biggest concern for the coming year?
My biggest concern for the coming year is that people feel deflated and don't think that we have the opportunity to make substantial change. I didn't tell you this, but I'll make breaking news. I recently joined Speaker Emerita Pelosi's political team for the 2024 cycle to highlight the necessity of keeping the Affordable Care Act intact. Because the other side of politics in the United States has said they want to rescind health care for 140 million Americans. And like, as an activist, I'm like, no. But, I'm stepping into the fray and reminding people that all of the things, or many of the things I've been a part of, were once thought impossible. So my fear is that people are like, we can't do this. So forgetting because of the fatigue that we experience, forgetting the power and resilience that are part of the human experience, are there for us to take hold of and unleash transformation.
Yeah. So Reggie, we've got a global audience here, and also that's certainly the interest of the global, Compassion Coalition.
Yeah.
You have incredible experience in the U.S. in particular. How might you generalize that? How might you extend some one or two or three major lessons you've learned about compassionate action? How might you generalize that outside of the U.S. borders?
Yeah, one of the blessings is that I speak 3 languages, lived in Brazil, and went to business school in Belgium. So I've lived
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've lived on the South American continent, speak Brazilian, Portuguese, and Spanish.
Yeah.
I've lived in Belgium and flitted around Western Europe and the Czech Republic. So like and my social media handles Reggie Global. So like I focused on the States, but I have a global mind. The one thing living abroad has taught me is that we may speak different languages, but we essentially have the same interests. And if we can normalize the well-being of other people as being a priority for us, that's great. You know what I mean? And that is something that you can get behind, whether you're from the UK, whether you are from like KSA, whether you're from like LA, you know what I mean? So like normalizing the well-being of people as a priority concern, and well-being, not from a materialistic sense, but well-being from a basic standard of living, basic healthcare, you know what I mean? And those sorts of things. So remembering that we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. And, His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about that, like the transition from like the individualistic mind to being 8 billion people for a common cause of compassion and alleviating suffering, right? And so like from a global perspective, if we can somehow shift me to us, because me is the biggest illusion in the planet, right? So, and that's a global message too. Like the self-aggrandizing notion of materialism is undercutting our basic connection, which is the beauty of like spiritual practice.
Let me cut to something kind of blunt here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm into that.
All right. Yeah. No. Yes. Correct. A lot of people in the world do not live in a democracy.
Yeah.
And yet, they live in countries, they're functioning, they're making their own way. And it's obviously really important that we don't, kind of like be narrow-minded coming from our own particular country. So imagining, without naming any names, but imagining countries in which people are in the coalition that really are not functioning democracies at all.
Yeah.
And yet there are growing institutions of civil society. The schools work kind of, but they work. They have hospitals, they're organizations of various kinds trying to make things better. What might people take away from your experience from the halls of power and your long experience as an activist in countries around the world that don't really yet have much of a functioning civil society?
I mean, it might be argued that America has a functioning civil society as well.
Yeah.
So let's just be very blunt about that.
For sure.
Our functioning democracy has been under assault by corporate interests for years, right? Yeah. And so, but from a global perspective, again, it's in the whether or not you're a democracy, a functioning civil society relies on me viewing your suffering and seeing it as sacred. Right, something that
matters.
I must do something about this. Yeah. It's not a passing fancy; it's sacred.
Yeah,
right. And so like a functioning civil society that views the suffering of other people, regardless of your governmental system, but a functioning civil society that views the suffering of other people as worthy of attention and loving action.
Yeah,
because more people we have like that, I mean, because the other thing too, like, and not only is in my experience as an activist, but as an experience as a minority in the United States, is that not everyone's going to believe what I believe, but I can't keep that from having me love all people.
Hmm.
There's some people who look at me and like clutch their purse and run away. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't care that I went to Yale. They don't care about all the, they don't care about all the stuff. They don't care about that. They just see me as a threat. And
Yeah.
so that by proxy has made my suffering present to me so I can love myself and by proxy show that to other people. So to answer your question bluntly, globally, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like climate change doesn't care your nationality. It doesn't care
That's
your
right.
democracy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Global poverty, and global hunger doesn't care your nationality. It doesn't care your system of government. The problems that we have that are exacerbating by our connection, our lack of focus on our mutual connection, they don't care about your political party or your functioning democracy. So I know part of the charter of the GCC is a rising compassion so that we can do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not just talk about it, but like use research and activism and these sorts of things to do something.
Yeah.
So if you're in a society that doesn't have a functioning democracy, yet you still care about people suffering or creating coalitions and institutions to alleviate that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, one of the you're on our board.
Yep.
People should know Reggie's on the board of the Global Compassion Coalition, and one of the things that we see ourselves doing is certainly offering a hub of resources for inner practice, foundational. You walk that talk. It's been my career as well. Okay, inner practices. But that's not enough. That's just the beginning. It's not where we end, right? And where the real power is catalyzing, being like an incubator, a midwife for effective coalitions to start forming that are big enough to be strong enough to drive, to change systemic sources of suffering. One of them that I've mentioned already earlier is the GCC getting involved in promoting civic engagement in locally appropriate ways. How it's going to look in Vietnam will be different from how it looks in America in our upcoming, presidential election, let's say. But still, we can promote that. And nonprofits that are pro-social have a legitimate interest in promoting a foundation of pro-sociality, which means civil society in its different emerging forms, wherever they are. So that's an alliance. A different kind of an alliance would be one that is very, very close to my heart, which is mobilizing a mass movement of individuals, people for the planet, who are doing what they can individually to be net zero themselves by reducing their carbon footprint and then making really small donations to legitimate nonprofits that work to suck that carbon out of the sky. Yeah. And that at scale, the scale of 1 million people being net zero themselves, or 100 million, or maybe 500 million, you actually can make a serious dent in greenhouse gas emissions. There's a long way to go besides what individuals can do, but you still do a lot. So that would be another example of people coming together at scale. And I guess I want to ask you, from your hard-won experience in the halls of Congress, what are some of the key things you've learned about forming effective coalitions for, systemic change?
Yeah, the main thing from my end is that you just have to be consistent. When people see me walk into a room, like I've been consistent for 25 years, right? So like same guy, same open heart, same speaking truth to power with kindness, so effective coalitions, there's good faith, there's candor.
Yeah.
And there's also shared ambition towards a goal, meaning, I've made some pretty strange coalition partners in my day. You know what I mean? And I'm like, look, you agree with me here. I agree with you here. So let's do this.
Even though we disagree about this and that.
We disagree about 86 other things. Right. But this thing we agree on, can we do this and convince a majority of people to do this? Right. Thank you, meditation, spiritual practice for that, because, many of us in activist work specifically, and I know that's not what this is about per se, but many of us in activist work are so Puritan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This has to be 100%. What is that? So That doesn't mean compromise your morals or principles, but like if for effective coalition building, which is the heart of your question, if I agree with you here and you agree with me here, and we have good faith and we have the ambition to get that done, can we get that done? Because whether you're a conservative or a liberal, that's progress.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And one of the things I think that you're embodying is something I mentioned earlier, which is the capacity. I think of this line from T.S. Eliot, of all things, teach us to care and not to care.
Right.
Teach us to sit still, from his poem, Ash Wednesday, kind of a prayer. And that combination of compassion and equanimity, the combination of doing what you can, focusing on the causes while being at peace about the results, knowing that what shapes results is largely out of your hands. That's a very important way to have a strong heart in turbulent times.
Right. I mean, and just a quick rejoinder to that, like Buddhist practice, meditative practice has helped me do that, right? Like it has helped me see, okay, I can't predict what's going to happen on the other side of this, but I can predict that if I do nothing, nothing's going to happen. So like, let me just put this in here with ultimate intention, heartful yet heartless, in terms of just not attached to the result. And I mean, miracles happen.
That's great.
In that act of faith.
I think when people, I've just talked with a lot of people who feel despairing and helpless.
Yeah.
And I think of the ways in which throughout history, you know, forces of the status quo try to make people feel despairing and helpless. So they'll numb out and turn toward bread and circuses. So instead, it's really important to focus on where we do have agency inside our own mind, seeing what's actually true, inside our own being, knowing what we care about, and inside our own being, making our own plans. Right. See what you see, know what you care about, know what you're going to do, if only inside your own mind. And then move it out into the world as best you can. If people can take refuge in the knowing that they've taken responsibility for what is under their control, while at the same time finding a way to be at peace about what's out of your control. Right. That's the serenity prayer in a nutshell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can take heart in knowing that you've done what you can, you know.
And that's what helps me sleep at night. You know what I mean? Because, you know, meaning I have such big missions in life and I tend to go after huge things, but I know I can't do everything. I'm not called to do everything. I'm just called to do my thing.
Yeah.
And if enough of, and you talked a little bit about this earlier, if enough of us do our thing with integrity, with open-heartedness, you know, with fearlessness, but not rooted in ignorance, you know, or negligence, but fearlessness born of courage, and discernment. Like if enough of us live that way, like these calcified systems can only, like, they can't withstand that.
No, it's true. Earlier today, Kristen Neff was my guest in an earlier version, and I asked her what she would, you know, gave her hope for the future, right? And she said, well, one thing that gives me hope is that more people today, you know, in an absolute sense, but also per capita, relatively, more people today are engaged with consciousness raising than at any other time in history.
For sure.
More people today are knowledgeable about the mind. They're engaged in mindfulness, compassion, emotional intelligence practices. These are more and more widely available, including in classrooms for young children. Yeah, regular people, athletes, even the, you know, the military, you know, people in the U.S. Marine Corps are learning mindfulness and self-compassion, partly because it, you know, helps them to be less vulnerable to PTSD, et cetera, et cetera. So that gave her hope. And I find myself quite hopeful when I look out into the world that I really do think the world is at a tipping point. A critical mass of people have just had it up to here and are enough established, you know, rising middle class around the world, a long overdue of movement of women into position of leadership, still have a long way to go. And, you know, less and less tolerance, still a long way to go for racism and other forms of discrimination. But still, now there's enough power combined without outrage. If we can come together and focus all that light, all those photons individually through the magnifying glass of different things like the Global Compassion Coalition and other similar organizations, I do think we can make a much better world certainly by the end of the century.
Yeah,
Took a long time to get here. It's
yeah.
going to take a while to get out of the pit, but if we work together, we can accomplish that.
What I tell people often is, especially when they come to me saying they're hopeless and despairing and these sorts of things, I'm like, so we're in the incubation stages of the world we deserve. Right. You know, like
Beautiful.
you said, there are compassion practices are proliferating, you know, they're
Yeah.
there. Right. So, and I'm a musician. I think you know that too.
Yeah.
All you have to do is play the right note and people will follow the song. You know what I mean? Like like people have to have the courage to speak or sing or play or do these sorts of things. And if the masses are truly sick of it and you give them something to love and chase, right? You know, Maya Angelou has a quote that's up in my studio. This is hate has sure caused a lot of problems in this world, but never solved a one.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so to your point, like if people's compassion and anger rooted through compassion has arisen, it's up to those of us who are in leadership positions to hold their attention, and to your point, like as an organizer, to bring your attention on the things that matter.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about bread and circuses earlier. Everyone's trying to get satiated or deluded as a matter of cultural course. So for those of us who are in this work, like if we can be like, yeah, I get that, but what about this? Right. That's the magic that I think is prevalent and present for us.
Beautiful. Well, on that note of hope and determination, I like that combination.
Yeah.
You certainly embody it. Let's call it a wrap. I want to thank you for staying up late. I want to really thank Mission Control over there in London, Alex Wilkes, 3 in the morning, 3:17 in the morning for him. Thank you, Alex. You're a hero. You know, I owe you a beer at least or two anyway. And I would just last say that if you're moved to donate to the Compassion Coalition to support the work of Reggie and myself and others helping to build a more compassionate world, really, your tax-deductible donation to the Global Compassion Coalition would be very much appreciated. Well, so thank you, Reggie. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And it's a wrap.
Peace.